जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। श्री श्रीनिताय गौरचंद्र भगवान की जय। Hare Krishna. Reading from Canto 1st, Chapter 13, text number 58. 58. dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati. dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati. dahyamāne vidignehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati. dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati. dahyamāne gnibhir dehe patyuḥ patnī sahoṭaje bahiḥ sthitā patiṁ sādhvī tam agnim vekṣyati. Word by word meaning. dahyamāne, while it is burning, agnibhiḥ, by the fire, dehe, the body, patyuḥ, of the husband, patnī, the wife, saha-uṭaje, along with the thatched cottage, bahiḥ, outside, sthitā, situated, patim, unto the husband, sādhvī, the chaste lady, tam, that, agnim, fire, vekṣyati, looking with great attention will enter the fire. Translation. While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power along with his thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with rapt attention. Purport. Gandhari was an ideal chaste lady, a life companion of her husband, and therefore, when she saw her husband burning in the fire of mystic yoga along with his cottage of leaves, she despaired. She left home after losing her 100 sons, and in the forest she saw that her most beloved husband was also burning. Now she actually felt alone, and therefore she entered the fire of her husband and followed her husband to death. This entering of a chaste lady into the fire of her dead husband is called the sati rite. The action is considered to be most perfect for women. In a later age, this sati rite became an obnoxious criminal affair because the ceremony was forced upon even an unwilling woman. In this fallen age, it is not possible for any lady to follow the sati rite as chastely as it was done by Gandhari and others in past ages. A chaste wife like Gandhari would feel the separation of her husband to be more burning than actual fire. Such a lady can observe the sati rite voluntarily, and there is no criminal force by anyone. When the rite became a formality only and force was applied upon the lady to follow the principle, actually it became criminal, and therefore the ceremony was to be stopped by state law. This prophecy of Narad Muni to Maharaj Yudhishthir forbade him to go to his widowed aunt. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamaiham Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitansha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauradvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavati Vachalam Pangum Lankayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. So I seek blessings of all the Vaishnavas so that I can speak on this elevated subject of Srimad Bhagavatam for the pleasure of the Lord and His devotees and also for my own purification. So in this section we have been discussing about Narad Muni specifying to Maharaj Yudhishthir after departure of his uncles and his aunt, and Narad Muni is giving him pacification and telling him you don't worry about their how they will maintain and everything. So everything will happen, and he also is giving him what is going to happen in future. That like last verse he said that 5 days from now Dhritarashtra will burn the mystic fire and following him, like in today's verse, the Gandhari will also enter the fire. So that way Narad Muni is telling Yudhishthira Maharaj what is going to happen. So in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada also explains about the Sahamaran of Gandhari, who is also following her husband and burning, means entering the funeral fire of her husband. So Prabhupada clarifies many things about the sati rite. Actually, there are a lot of misconceptions among people about this sati rite, how, why, so many things. So we may also had before coming to Krishna consciousness. So when Prabhupada and Acharya they explain us, like Prabhupada very nicely explained in today's purport, and many other places Srila Prabhupada explained, so we get proper clarity of what is it about and why the purpose and get proper perspective of the Vedic traditions. So this sati rite, what Prabhupada has told in many other places. So sati rite, it was a practice which was there in the very Vedic tradition. It was called as sahagaman or sahamaran. So, and as Prabhupada said here, it was not imposed, it was voluntary. It was a choice for the woman, because the chaste wife would naturally feel lot of separation of fire after the departure of husband. So she would willingly embrace the fire, and that's what it was done. And this rite is mentioned, and many rewards, and so many other things is mentioned in the Karmakandic sections of Vedic literatures. So that was the purpose. So purpose was, the whole idea of sati was that the husband and wife, they would unite for the purpose of spiritual cultivation in a dharmic way, and even after the death, again they continue united way the spiritual cultivation. So that was the purpose. So their bond would go beyond life, and that's why she would voluntarily enter the fire. And everyone, there is a lot of difference between those time and today's time, because that time everyone was aware about the eternality of soul, and they would having proper idea and perspective, so there was no issue. But as things became more and more materialistic, this sati practice became very much forceful than voluntary. So it was imposed. That's why it had to be stopped. So for a person who is just having one lifetime in his mind, those who understand, okay, there is only one life, they don't understand the soul. For them, this is really shocking and very cruel, barbaric kind of thing. So for that matter, it had to be stopped eventually. So it was not suicide, because generally they say this is committing suicide. This is like committing suicide. But it was not suicide, because suicide is committed out of frustration. But this was not frustration. It was voluntarily acceptance of. It was considered to be honor by just because suicide is something when somebody is not happy in his life, he is not feeling something worth in his life living, and or something worth is taken away, so it out of frustration one commits. But this was not that way. It was a self sacrifice that was done on the part of the chaste lady, and it was not also murder, because it was not forceful, it was a choice, voluntary choice. So just like in the Mahabharata, when Maharaj Pandu, he left his body, he died, and both of the queens, Madri and Kunti, so both of them wanted to go sati. So there was no question ki you go or who will go. So both of them were willing to go, but they only had a concern about the children, who will take care of the children. So then ultimately it was decided that Madri will go and Kunti would stay back to take care of the children. So it was matter of service. It was not. So Madri decided that I will continue to follow the husband and continue serving him wherever he goes, because that's what happens when sati, the wife follows the husband's destination. Yes, and Kunti stayed back so that she could take care of the children. So both are doing service only. So the whole idea, whole primary idea was service. There is no frustration, there is no force, there is nothing like that. Srila Prabhupada said in one purport that even in recent times, in as late as 1936, Prabhupada said we saw one devoted lady, she entered the fire of her husband voluntarily. So it was prevalent in Vedic times. So Of course, this sati right, it was spiritual cultivation definitely, but in terms of the gradual spiritual cultivation, not the direct way, just like in the path of karma kanda. It's a gradual progression, so that uh, the husband and wife, they together follow, and then gradually they get purified, and uh, bahunam jarmanam ante, that practice. So gradually they get purified, and like that they get elevated. So in karma kanda there is lot of emphasis on worldly relationships, along with following one's own dharma and practices like that. But in bhakti it is not the same. In bhakti it's not dynasty, and that is not so important, because everyone has his own connection, his own direct relationship with Krishna. So that is something different from different here. So that's why the Vedas, they accept, they discuss about this particular sati rites and all. So it was mainly from the karma kanda practices, and there are so many rewards, because initially when first time I heard about this particular thing, I used to think that because the wife would follow the husband in wherever he goes. So I thought if the husband is good person, then it's okay, we can understand. But if the husband is not, if he's sinful, and so then what is the problem? Then the wife has to follow him. So what is this? So it's not exactly like that. So there are a lot of rewards which are mentioned in some other Puranas and other, like I heard in Garud Purana it is mentioned that the wife who follows the husband, so even if the husband is not, as husband is fallen and he's going towards hell, she protects and elevates the husband, and along with husband she resides in heavenly planets for a long time, millions of years she resides on heavenly planets. And so there are many like that rewards are mentioned. So it's exactly not, so it's definitely elevating, but definitely doesn't come under direct devotional service to the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is very merciful, and he has very nicely took the essence of the Vedic literatures, of the Vedic system traditions, and he presented us in Krishna consciousness for all of our benefits. So Vaishnava Dharma focuses on relationship with Krishna, and all other relationships are to be harmonized along with that. So that's what Srila Prabhupada taught us. And the scriptures originally they have a purpose, and the social systems are made in accordance to follow that purpose. But as the time progresses, yogo nashtav parantapa, the social systems they get perverted as a matter of time. So there is no need to revive them exactly in the original form, but important is to fulfill the purpose of scriptures, original purpose of scriptures, how we can act now, and that's how we have to fulfill the purpose of the scriptures. So Prabhupada, during his time, he wanted to bring the Vedic tradition, but the situation, as per the time and situations, he accepted those principles, whatever way it was easy to follow by his Western disciples and this current day and age. Just like many of his Western disciples, they were not able to properly pronounce the mantras. And like Prabhupada, there was an incident when Prabhupada was trying his best to teach one of his disciples about pronouncing of Gayatri mantra during Brahman Diksha. But he was trying his best, but he was not able to pronounce properly. So Prabhupada said, no problem, try your best. So it is very difficult for all of your Western bodied devotees to follow properly. But no problem, try your best. Krishna is merciful, he will take care of it. So, like Srila Prabhupada, he was doing deity installation. So in San Francisco, Jagannath Puri. So he did very simple. There was no arrangement of big sacrifices, this, that. He just told everyone take a candle and offer to Jagannath, and that's what the installation of deities in New Jagannath Puri. So Srila Prabhupada knew the essence, and that's how he took. Even in Vrindavan, when there was deity installation, so Srila Prabhupada said we should call the local Brahmanas, so that there is no need, but so that the people will get faith. For their purpose, we have to bring the local Brahmanas for doing their proper rituals and all. But he said, continue the kirtan. That is the most important. Holy name is the most important ingredient for welcoming the Lord. Yes. And in Vedic times, the husband was by default a devotee. He was following the guru, and the wife following the husband. And by default, there was a system, and all gets elevated towards the ultimate goal of life, going back to Godhead. So that's what is this pastime, how Gandhari is entering the fire, and that's what is the proper perspective Srila Prabhupada gives us in this purport. So I was thinking, what is there for us to learn in this matter of sati and other things? So I just remembered that Prabhupada, he many other places and many other, our Acharyas and Prabhupada, they give a lot of correlation between the relationship of husband-wife to a relationship of guru and disciple. So that is very many other places Srila Prabhupada emphasized, and he gave a lot of practical lessons for us to follow. So one such place is in the pastime of Kardama and Devahuti, how Devahuti very nicely served her husband. In third canto it is mentioned, and with so many wonderful qualities, and that's how a disciple should cultivate those qualities while serving the spiritual master, like that. And one very important pastime in fourth canto, which is very much in line with today's discussion about the wife entering the funeral fire, going sati in that way. So one very important pastime is that comes in the Puranjan Upakhyan. That is the King Malayadhwaj, he is passing away, and his wife Vaidarbhi, who was Puranjan in his past life, and she has come. She was all alone in the forest, because they were in the forest for many years in Vanaprastha ashram, and suddenly one day Malayadhwaj passed away. So she was all alone, and that was very. So this is the verse, and so we'll read some important points from the purport which Prabhupada gives. So the translation of this verse: being now alone and a widow in the forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears, which soaked her breast and crying very loudly. So in purport, Prabhupada writes, figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, his disciples should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves the body. However, the disciple and spiritual master are never separated, because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple, as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called as association of Vani. So, and the physical presence is called Vapu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciples should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciples should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. So spiritual master and disciple relationship is very, very fundamental to our spiritual life, for our daily practices, and also for steadily practicing our spiritual life long term. It's a very fundamental relationship in our life, and it is a primary source of our inspiration to go on throughout the life and also beyond. So Srila Prabhupada here tells about Vani and Vapu association. So both are very important, Vapu and Vani association, but Vani importance is very important, because Vani association is available to everyone. Vapu association may not be available to everyone. And Vani association remains always with the disciple, even after the spiritual master is not present. So whenever there is opportunity, the disciple should take advantage of Vapu association, but for most of the time, the disciple can definitely take shelter of the Vani association. And without taking Vani association, the Vapu association will not much benefit. So that is always Vani is most important. So Srila Prabhupada is always having this, he is one of the famous profound statement that a spiritual master lives in his sound vibration and a sincere disciple also lives with him. So in that way there is no separation of a disciple from his spiritual master. And in fact Srila Prabhupada himself said that I am always living in my books. So if we are taking shelter of Prabhupada books, then we are always with Srila Prabhupada. And so many disciples, so many senior devotees and so many of devotees have always shared how they are looking for many questions, many answers to their questions, and as soon as they read specific any Prabhupada book, and they immediately get answer to their questions. Because Prabhupada is personally present and he is resolving many of our personal doubts, inquiries, many managerial inquiries and so many other things personally through his books. And from spiritual master, the sound vibration is available for us in so many ways, through his lectures, through his wonderful example, through his instructions, personalized instructions, general instructions, and that way we can take benefit of the Vani association. So that is very helpful for the disciple in the absence of the spiritual master. Just like Narada Muni, when he received the instructions from Bhaktivedantas, and while departing, so in those 4 months he received a lot of instructions, but while departing they give specific instructions. Like they give him 4 or 5 instructions. Like they said, always take the opportunity to hear about Krishna and develop affection for him. And they said material energy should neither be rejected nor be used for one's own enjoyment, but rather it should be used in the service of Krishna. And they said ki spiritual world is like fire and material world is like smoke. So if you take a blower and blow the smoke will go away. Similarly, when you intensify the spiritual life, then all other problems will go away. So like that, many instructions they had given to Narada Muni, and by following those instructions, Narada boy became Narada Muni, even in the absence of the spiritual master. Similarly, Arjuna, when Krishna left back to his abode, and Arjuna was very much in painful situation, and in that situation he remembered the instructions of Krishna and all the favors that he had received from Krishna, and that gave him solace. And that was and he was, by remembering the instructions of Krishna, he was feeling more presence of Krishna. He was feeling more presence of Krishna in his life. And another very nice example is Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto, the Prachetas. They were performing austerities and they were instructed by Lord Shiva. So there are 3 words mentioned, how they performed, how they followed the instructions of Lord Shiva. One is tadhyayanto. They meditated on the instruction received by Lord Shiva. And japantascha. They also discussed and how we can follow the instructions given by, that is called as Ishtagoshti, to discuss the desires of the Guru and how we can fulfill them, give them shape to the instructions of the Guru. That is japantascha, and also pujayanto. They also worshipped those instructions. They kept them in the topmost altar of their heart and worshipped those instructions. And Srila Prabhupada himself is the very powerful example of this principle. That he received the instructions and he placed them in the topmost altar in his heart, he worshipped them and he executed them. Srila Prabhupada said, when I received the instructions, I always remembered them. Although I could not fulfill them immediately because of the situation, but I always meditated them, I worshipped them, and I always prepared. How will I fulfill those instructions given by my spiritual master? And later he fulfilled also in amazing way. Just like he was told, print books. So Srila Prabhupada throughout his entire life, he was on this particular instruction of his spiritual master. First of all, he himself tried. When he was in India, he would do everything himself. If we read in the first volume of Lilamrit, how he would do everything himself with so much sacrifice, with so much urgency. He was trying to execute. And later also, when he got a lot of money and followers, he gave a lot of importance on following this important instruction. So whenever there are conversations of Prabhupada, when Rameshwar, he was asking that we have a lot of loan, we have a lot of this, that. Prabhupada would say, first of all, books. So he has always given that priority. That because that was the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. And he kept it as a priority. And Srila Prabhupada also did not get much association of his Guru Maharaj. He met 11 times in the entire of his life. He met only 11 times his spiritual master in those. Is it correct? 11 times? 11 times, I heard. Yes, 11 times. And he received initiation in 1933, and in 36, his spiritual master departed. But he served after that also next 41 years with so much connection to his spiritual master. So he always said, I always felt the presence of my spiritual master, and he never felt any separation from him. And what to speak of Prabhupada, there are so many Prabhupada disciples. After 50 years, more than that also, they are serving spiritual master, serving Srila Prabhupada, like His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, and many others, serving more than 50 years in the service of their spiritual master. And some of them had, and many of them did not have much association of Prabhupada. Just like Niranjan Maharaj, when he would say, how many interactions you had with Srila Prabhupada? He would say like this, 0. Because for most of the disciples, it was like Prabhupada gave initiation, and after that, they would occasionally see Prabhupada on the Vyasasan, giving some lecture. Occasionally. That's all. Only few devotees, those who are in the closer circle, so they had access to Sri Srila Prabhupada and talk. So most of them were like this. And that is also same case with most of us. So for us, it's all the more important to take the Vani association very seriously. And that is always available through the lectures and the instructions of the spiritual master. So when the Vaishnavas are present, we take the inspiration from their example, from their actions, from their other places. But when the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas are no more longer present, that time, the sincere disciple, as sincere devotees, we have to take shelter of their instructions and try to fulfill those. Okay, so next, next 50th verse can open, because time is not much. 50. Okay, I'll read now, otherwise time will go. So, in the 50th verse, then, so she then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. So in the later part of the purport, Prabhupada says that similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to re-establish the principles of religion, so his representative, the spiritual master, also comes to re-establish religious principles. And it is the duty of disciples to take charge of the mission of spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. So here he's saying, so disciple feels completely dependent on the spiritual master. That's why he feels like dying. So of course it is very high level of affection that a disciple who cultivated for spiritual master. At our case, at least in my case, that is not there. So at least we should have a respect. So before love comes the respect. So when we develop respect, and how does respect will come? By hearing the glories of spiritual master from the senior devotees and from his books and through his teachings. So when we develop the respect, then gradually the love will also come. And then when the love is come, then we will also feel the separation. Like here it is said. So the disciple feels like giving up his body when the spiritual master is no longer present. But he understands that spiritual master had a mission to fulfill. So let me contribute and serve the mission of spiritual master. Then the spiritual master will be pleased. So then in that mood, the disciple, he continues serving Guru's mission. And the Guru is pleased by his service. And in the next verse, purport, Prabhupada says, when one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one dedicates his life to serve the mission of spiritual master, what happens? One gets to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means one attains the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instructions of the spiritual master. This is technically called Vani Seva. And further Prabhupada says, in conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Vani or Vapu. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavan, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. So when one serves the spiritual master, automatically, easily, he attains the mercy of the Supreme Lord. There are so many examples, innumerable examples throughout the scriptures for these principles. One example very striking is from Ramayana. When Shabri, she was instructed by her spiritual master, to stay back and wait to serve Lord Ram. So she waited for a long time, fulfilling sincerely the instruction of her spiritual master. And ultimately, Lord Ram came and awarded her the complete perfection. And similarly, there are many examples like Ishwarapuri. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have, so he served his spiritual master very nicely, faithfully, and Supreme Lord, he accepted him as his own spiritual master. So that way, one should find Krishna in the instructions of Guru. And yes, so Prabhupada in conclusion tells that when one becomes serious to follow the mission of spiritual master, it's equivalent to seeing Krishna eye to eye. That's how one attains Krishna's mercy. So personally, I feel very far away from the standard that Srila Prabhupada is expecting, but at least I am trying to remind myself so that I will at least develop some kind of amount of respect to the spiritual master and gradually develop the love and also the desire and dedication to serve the mission of the spiritual master. So that is about this today's verse. I also wanted to speak about, because today is the first day of Kartik, something about the glories and something about Kartik. So we have few minutes, so I will try to discuss something. I think last Sunday, Jivadeva Prabhu also spoke something important of Kartik and very nicely explained. So today is the first day. Of course, it's the Kartik month celebration. We begin from Sharad Purnima itself, but still today is the first day. So it's very important for us to understand and take the maximum benefit which is available in this month of Kartik. There is one verse in Skanda Puran that says, "Na Kartika samo maso, na krutena samam yugam, na veda sadrusham shastram, na tirtha gangaya samam." He says that Satyuga is the best of all the yugas. Vedas are the best scriptures. Ganga is the best of the rivers, and Kartik is the best of the months in throughout the year. So there are different vratas, so many other things are there in our scriptures. So Chaturmas is the very important that many devotees especially they follow. But even in Chaturmas, if somebody is not able to do all 4 months, the Kartik, the end, the last one, is the best and top of all. So at least one should try to follow the Kartik month. Because it is also called as Urja Vrat. Because this month is under the jurisdiction of Srimati Radharani. So Radharani is also called as Urjeshwari. Why she is called as Urjeshwari? Because when one practices this Urja Vrat, this in Kartik, Urja means we take some extra endeavor in our practice of devotional service in this month, then Srimati Radharani is very much pleased and she gives lot of urja, energy and lot of inspiration, enthusiasm for us to practice spiritual life, Krishna consciousness nicely. So that's why she is called as Urjeshwari. So she is the inspiration, she gives the inspiration, power, strength to practice spiritual life. So that's why this month it's very important to do that. To take some little steps in our spiritual Krishna consciousness, some commitments, some vrata, that is important. Because just like it is said, if you want to get something done in some office, kuch kaam karwana hai, then you have to see who is sitting there. Officer कौन बैठे हैं, खड़ूस है कि मुलायम officer है. So in this month, the position is taken by Srimati Radharani to award unlimited mercy. So that's why devotees take maximum benefit in this month so that they can amass lot of mercy. And this month is dear to both Radha and Krishna. And it is said this month is full of bhakta vatsalya. So even little thing is done gets lot of in so much of benefits. There are so many benefits, we will not go into that, we have no time. Few like, it is said even if you read one verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in this month, so there is benefit of attaining realization of all the 18 Puranas, all the Vedas, everything, just by reading one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and so many, and offering lamp and so many other things. So every lamp we offer, of course there are so many benefits which are mentioned from the Karmakandic perspective. You will get the benefit of doing yagyas and sins are destroyed. So, but for us, most important is when we offer the lamp, we also lighten the lamp of love in our heart. So, and we also please Shri Radha and Krishna by offering. So we also, and each and every lamp that we are offering, although we don't understand, we offer and we just put it away and like that. So all these lamps are kept into account, and it is said all these lamps put together, this light is we are able to see when we are going back to Godhead. That time this lamp, जो भी हमने lamp offer किए हैं throughout our life, we can see the together all of them guiding us back to spiritual world. So that is the benefit which is mentioned, although we don't see it in that way. And there are no specific rules and regulations. ऐसा कुछ बताया नहीं है कि किसी को यही करना है वही करना है, ऐसा नहीं है. One can take as per his own capacity and as per his thing, one can take his varta, something that he can follow throughout the 30 days, throughout the entire month. So that is something. There are no hard and fast rules. One can take ghee lamp, अगर घी नहीं है, oil lamp, जो भी है. Somebody else's lamp also somebody offers. Still there is lot of benefit. ऐसा नहीं है. Sometimes if we are in train, there is no, so then we can offer in the mind. In the mind, there is no expenditure. So we can take the best possible gold lamp studded with jewels, with the ghee of Padmagandha cow, and one offer. So there is no limit in that sense for offering and performing devotional service. There are Nishedha Vratas and there are Vidhi Vratas. Nishedha means to something to give up, Vidhi is to something to do. So most important Nishedha Vrata is to not commit Vaishnava Aparadh. So that is something which we should avoid. Normally also, but especially in this month. It's not that after this month we can do, that's not like that. So there are so many vratas which are mentioned, and we have been discussing. One should reside in Dham at least for a few days in this month. Then one should do Tulsi Seva. One should Shastra Adhyan is also important. Every day we should do some Shastra Adhyan, reading Prabhupada books, and offering obeisances, worshipping deities. And like that, there are so many things mentioned. So one can take as per one's capacity. One has to be practical also. So we can take a baseline. Okay, I will chant few rounds, and if more than that, if we can do, all the more good. So that way we can take this. So most important is to have proper consciousness. Even if we do little, but with what consciousness we do, that is very important. So and our bhav is not that of karma kandi, कि how much I am getting, so if एक lamp किया तो इतना मिलेगा, फिर इतना. So we are not in that mood. We are just here to please Krishna. So this Varta is pleasing to Krishna, and that way we will be getting. So there are many demigods who have been put to calculate the benefits and reward us later on. So we don't have to worry about them. So they are doing their part. We have to just do our part. To take the Vrata and do it nicely. Okay, so one thing very nicely I heard that when we take a Vrata for 30 days, so it is a very trick that is kept. After you do something for 30 days, it becomes a habit. So then we can continue with the same Vrata. So once His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj ji said, take some Vrata which you can do, take with you lifelong. That is a very good Vrata. So something like that, if we can do, that is even more wonderful. So that is a very important. So we are very fortunate, and today is the first day. So we have this opportunity this week, this month, that we can take benefit of and make lot of spiritual advancement in this particular month. So with this we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.